In this video, we're going to look into situationships, how you know you might be in one, why it's a problem, and importantly, how you can change your current situation and hopefully find yourself in the fulfilling, deep relationship that can really make you happy. So let's dive in. First of all, some of you may have heard the phrase situationship before, some of you might not. It can be quite hard to define what a situationship is. It can be a stage before you move into being a full relationship, or it can be a stage where you're not in a relationship, but you're more than friends with benefits. The important thing about a situationship is that you probably don't really know what it is, or you're not comfortable defining it. And that's often the biggest clue that you're in a situationship. So you're having fun, but it's not really enough for you, and you're not really sure, what do you call this person? You might be deliberately avoiding calling them your boyfriend so that you avoid defining whether it's a situationship or not. And it's really tricky to know how emotionally attached and how committed you should be, because a situationship isn't a relationship. It is a different level of a commitment. It's less commitment, and you need to work out whether you're okay with that. If both of you are happy with the level of commitment that you've got in your situationship, then that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with having a light emotional connection with someone that isn't going to turn into a lifelong partnership. That can be fun and rewarding for everyone involved. For this video, I'm assuming that actually you want a little bit more than that, or at least you want some certainty around what's going on. And that's what we're going to provide here. So let's look at some of the signs that you might currently be in a situationship. And I've already alluded to one of them, which is if a friend asks you, so is he your boyfriend? Your answer is, if you're really uncomfortable being asked that question, or your answer is, I don't know, I'd like him to be, or anything that's vague and uncertain, and particularly if that question makes you feel uncomfortable, that's a really good sign that you are in the middle of a situationship. The next sign that you might be in a situationship is that you don't really feel like you're a part of his life. You see each other maybe in evenings, and you might go over to his, hang out together, maybe have sex, whatever it is, but you're not involved in any of the wider parts of his life. So you don't go with him to any of his hobbies, you don't support him in his work goals, he doesn't do the same for you either. It's as if you're having two completely separate lives, and you only meet for the short time that you're together. And even if you send each other affectionate texts throughout the day, they're only really about each other and not about having a meshing of your lives. Related to this is the fact that when you're in a situationship, you'll probably find that you're not getting to know him any better. You probably talk hours. Most of us talk to the people that we're intimate with and that we care about, but it might be about really surface topics. So you'll talk about something current or talk about what you've watched on TV. It's not quite small talk, but it's very close. And what's not happening is you're not getting to know more about him as a person. You're not getting to know what's important to him on questions of politics, religion, values. You're not getting to know his deeper self. If you think that you probably know about as much about this guy as someone who's worked with him for 3 or 6 months would know about him, then you're probably in a situationship. Another sign that you might be in a situationship is that you don't really talk about the future. Specifically, you don't make any future plans that involve the two of you. So you might make very vague, very grandiose plans or fantasies about how cool it would be to go on a yacht for a year cruising around the world, or how much fun it would be to rent a cabin for a week and go hiking, or whatever it might be that really feels like it would be amazing to you. But there's no real sense that this is going to happen. It's not a plan, it's not a shared future that you're then working towards. You're not even really talking about the future that you're individually working towards. It's a fantasy future rather than something that you actually think is going to happen. Because again, that's an emotional distance, as well as them not really being involved in your life and you not being involved in theirs. So that's a good sign of a situationship. A really obvious sign that you're in a situationship is that you haven't had the "what is this" conversation yet. Almost none of us enjoy having the "what is this" conversation. It's an awkward conversation to start, and it's a conversation where you know you might not get the answer that you want, and so sometimes it's easier to just not say anything at all. But if you haven't talked about it yet, it's not a relationship. And if it's on that boundary between is this a relationship or not, it's a situationship. One of the next signs that you're in a situationship is that you feel quite anxious and insecure about what your relationship is, what you mean to him, and you're regularly quite worried about whether he cares about you as much as you care about him. It's also often the case that a situationship will be quite inconsistent. Sometimes it will be deeply affectionate and really quite emotionally focused. And at other times, it'll be quite distant or just friendly. And that inconsistency can be a really clear sign that maybe it's a situationship. One of the things that I've seen a lot online when I've been looking into what people consider a situationship and the signs that they're in one is that a lot of people think that not having real dates means that you're in a situationship. And I think that's right up to a point. When we talk about real dates, it's important that you're not being too narrow in how you define what a real date is. So lots of people do go out on candlelit dinners or going to the movies, but it's perfectly possible to have a healthy relationship without that. What I think characterizes a date is that it's a time you spend just the two of you, or where the focus is on the pair of you that's doing something you both enjoy. It doesn't have to be your candlelit dinner. It could be going for a hike. Going to IKEA could even be a date if the two of you are approaching it in the right way, i.e., you're focused on each other, you're really thinking about fun, having fun together, and you're working as a team and you feel like a couple. That's a huge feature of what makes something a date in my book. So if you're not having dates, i.e., you're not having time that you spend together doing things as a couple, and yes, sex is a thing, but that's not really what we're talking about when we talk about dates. If you're not going out and doing things, then that may be a sign that you're in a situationship. The next thing to think about is that if you're in a situationship, it's often really easy to end it. That's one of the reasons that people stay in a situationship, is that ending a relationship is really difficult. Ending a situationship is significantly easier. So if you feel as though it would actually be surprisingly easy to end your relationship, and maybe if you feel like he's also trying to keep it that way, that's a good sign that, again, it is a situationship rather than a true deep relationship. Having talked about what the signs of a situationship are, you're hopefully pretty clear as to whether you're in one or not. But once you recognize that you're in a situationship and that you want more, what do you do about it? Well, unfortunately, the answer to that is the same answer that you have to most relationship problems as the first step, and it's going to be uncomfortable. You need to have the conversation. Having the conversation, opening up the "what is this? Are we dating? Are we in a relationship? Are we exclusive? Is this going somewhere?" is a scary conversation to start. As I mentioned earlier, they might not want the same things that you do. and it can feel like you're upsetting the status quo. But where things are, this situationship isn't fulfilling your needs. So it's worth having that conversation. It's also important that you think before you have the conversation about what you actually do want, because going into a conversation with an open mind is great, but if you're starting the conversation, they may not have been thinking about what this could be, what this should be, what they want. And having two people sitting there going, I don't know what I want, is not a good recipe for a meaningful, valuable conversation about a future relationship. Spending a couple of minutes just thinking about what you want, having an idea of what your ideal relationship would be, but also a realistic sense of, okay, this is what I need. This is what will make me happy in the medium term. This is what will make me happy in the long term. Do you think that we are compatible with that? It's a really useful conversation to have. And it does take bravery to have that conversation, but you can do it. Finally, it is worth saying that if you're in a situationship and it's not fulfilling your needs, and the other person doesn't want to take it to the next stage of being a deep, meaningful, exclusive or not relationship, you need to know that it's okay to walk away. You may decide that actually this isn't right for me. If what you want and what the other person wants out of a partner, out of this relationship, if that's not compatible, then you will need to be the brave person and walk away. Because even if this is enjoyable and fun and giving you something that you're really enjoying and happy about in many ways, it's also stopping you from having the kind of relationship that you deserve with someone who wants the same things that you do. And making space for that person to come into your life is going to be more fulfilling in the long run. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you have any other thoughts about anything that could be signs of a situationship, have you been in a situationship? Did you enjoy it? Some people really like being in a situationship. I'd love to hear from you guys about your experiences. And as always, do like and subscribe.